Life is inherently short, and we cannot forever carry burdens in our hearts. Letting go is sometimes not about losing something, but about rediscovering ourselves to walk more lightly on life's path. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a saying, "When the mind is at peace, all things are at peace." In truth, suffering does not come from external sources as much as we imagine, but rather from our inner clinging. We often cling to the past and worry about the future, forgetting that the present moment is where life truly unfolds. There once was a farmer who recounted that in his younger years, all he thought about was how to acquire more money and land. But the more he accumulated, the more uneasy his heart became, and he couldn't sleep soundly any night. It wasn't until his health deteriorated that he understood happiness lies not in how much we hold on to, but in knowing how to let go of what is unnecessary. Life is also like a burden carried on our shoulders. If we keep adding to it, there will come a time when our shoulders will collapse. But when we dare to put some of it down, when we dare to walk alone on a serene path, only then can we truly feel the freedom of our soul. The dawn still breaks radiantly, the birds still sing melodiously, and peace is always there, waiting for us to return. That is the beginning of the journey of letting go, to return to ourselves. This journey is not easy, but once begun, we will realize that the path ahead is brighter, lighter, and filled with love from within. One afternoon in Hanoi, the sky was cloudy. The late afternoon sun painted the unfinished buildings golden. Amidst the hurried pace of city life, somewhere echoed the steady sound of hammers and concrete mixers. Among the workers was a man named Hoa. He wasn't too old, nor was he still young, with calloused hands and a sun-darkened face. His life was tied to the construction site, with quick sleeps on mats spread right under the makeshift shelter. Yet, within him, there were always undercurrents of sorrow. Hoa was often annoyed and easily angered. Just one disagreeable word would make him flare up like fire. Sometimes he wondered why he suffered so much. Why couldn't life be a little easier? You get angry because your heart isn't forgiving enough. You feel troubled because your mind isn't generous enough. This statement might seem like a distant philosophy, but in reality, it directly reflects the lives of people like Hoa and all of us. Afflictions do not come from external circumstances, but originate from our own minds. As the Buddha once taught in the Dhammapada, no enemy can harm us as much as our own mistaken thoughts. Many people found that teaching too difficult to grasp, but only when we experience enough do we understand that suffering, anger, and jealousy are merely a mirror reflecting the lack of peace within our own hearts. Each time Hoa got angry, he often thought the cause was others. The boss was too strict, colleagues lacked a sense of responsibility, or society was unfair. But looking back, no one forced him. He kept that burning fire in his heart. He himself allowed that fire to consume his own being. It's like someone holding a burning coal, intending to throw it at another, but ultimately burning his own hand first. Afflictions, after all, are that very coal. All of us have experienced such moments. Sometimes, just a word from a loved one hurts us, making us ponder and sulk all night. Sometimes, a small incident on the street, a fleeting criticism, is enough for us to carry in our hearts for an entire week. But if we calmly reflect, we will realize that the root of our troubles isn't with the other person, but in how we receive things. Our minds aren't forgiving enough, which makes us easily hurt. Our minds aren't generous enough, which makes us easily resentful. And thus, each affliction is actually a mirror for us to clearly see where we are lacking. One evening, after a long day of labor, Hoa sat quietly on the porch of the makeshift shelter, the faint yellow streetlights shining down on his sweat-drenched face. He remembered that morning when he argued with a colleague over a trivial matter. He had become so angry that he threw his hammer to the ground. After that, he carried a heavy, stifled feeling all day. In that moment of sitting alone, he suddenly thought that he suffered not because of the other person, but because he himself didn't know how to let go. He began to understand that anger didn't make him stronger, but only made him lose his inner peace. In Buddhist teachings, afflictions are compared to clouds obscuring the sun. The light of wisdom and compassion is inherently present within every human being. But when the clouds of affliction gather, we can no longer see that clarity. The important thing is not to blame the clouds, but to learn how to let the wind of wisdom blow away the mist. Each time we get angry, we can see it as an opportunity to reflect on our own minds, to know that we still need to learn how to expand our hearts further. Looking back at his life, Hoa gradually understood that suffering itself is a teacher. Each time he got angry, each time he felt troubled, it was actually a reminder. Belle, you need to train your inner self. You need to let go of your stubborn ego. If there were no storms, we wouldn't appreciate the peace of clear skies. If we didn't experience afflictions, we wouldn't clearly see the value of a tranquil soul. One day, during his lunch break, Hoa accidentally overheard a Dharma talk playing from a colleague's small speaker. The lecturer's gentle voice resonated. When the mind is calm, the surroundings are calm. When the mind is chaotic, the surroundings are chaotic. Don't blame the world. Return to blaming yourself. That statement was like a cool stream flowing through his heart. He suddenly realized that for years he had been seeking peace externally. But in truth, peace had never left him. It was only because he kept looking outward and forgot about what was within. From that day on, Hoa developed a small habit. Whenever someone did something that went against his wishes, instead of erupting, he would take a deep breath and exhale slowly. Sometimes he would gently close his eyes for a few seconds, listening to his heartbeat and breath. It was just a small act, but gradually the fire within him subsided. He learned to look at his colleagues not with eyes of judgment, but with a look of empathy. He understood that everyone is struggling to make a living. Everyone has their own private struggles that we don't fully see. Afflictions thus became opportunities. Each time he got angry, he saw it as a chance to practice. Each time he felt troubled, he saw it as a wake-up call. Thanks to this, his life, which was full of worries, gradually became lighter. He no longer erupted easily as before, nor did he see himself as a victim of circumstances anymore. Instead, he realized that he was the master of his own soul. Reflecting, aren't all of us more or less like Hoa? We tend to think that happiness comes from a perfect world where everyone loves us, where there is no injustice. But in truth, that world will never exist. There is only one path: learning to adjust our own minds. When the mind is at peace, all circumstances are at peace. When the mind is chaotic, no place is peaceful. Therefore, instead of blaming afflictions, let us be grateful for them. It is afflictions that show us that our hearts aren't forgiving enough. Our minds aren't broad enough. It is afflictions that remind us that there are still many lessons to learn, many things to cultivate. And when we are grateful in this way, we no longer fear afflictions. We pass through them like passing through a rain shower, knowing that after the rain, the sky will clear, flowers will bloom, and our hearts will be purer. Ultimately, Mr. Hoa understood that letting go is not giving up, but knowing how to smile in the face of adversity, knowing how to return and care for one's inner self. He realized that happiness is not the absence of suffering, but finding peace even amidst suffering. Just as a lake remains still when the wind stops blowing, the human mind can also become clear when we learn to see afflictions as a friend. And if today you are also carrying worries, resentments in your heart, please stop for a moment. Close your eyes, breathe gently, and ask yourself why we must suffer. For things beyond our control, when we can choose inner peace from within. All afflictions originate from the mind, and it is also from the mind that they can be resolved. That is wisdom, the path back to oneself. Because life is impermanent, everything comes and goes like clouds drifting across the wide sky. Afflictions are not meant for us to be afraid, but for us to learn to grow. And when we know how to let go, we not only find peace again, but also open up a vast space in our soul, where there is the light of love, of inner freedom, of true happiness in the present moment. There are evenings when the streets are bathed in yellow light, people silently return home. After a long day, a vast emptiness arises within them. Some walk among the crowds, but still feel alone. Some lie in a brightly lit room, yet their minds are as dark as a moonless night. Loneliness is an unavoidable feeling in human life. It makes us feel isolated and lonely, often wanting to collapse. But in that solitude, if we know how to perceive it with different eyes, we will see it not just as darkness, but also as an opportunity to illuminate ourselves. Being alone often makes us confused. We want to find a shoulder to lean on, a hand to hold, someone to truly understand our heart. But as the Buddha once taught, be your own island. Rely on yourself. Do not rely on others. That statement is not to reject love or close our hearts to the world, but to remind us that the root of strength lies within ourselves. Only when we learn to walk alone do we truly mature and become resilient. Ms. Mai, a primary school teacher in a small village, is a testament to this. Her life was by no means easy. Her father died young, and her mother was frail and old. She was the eldest sister in a large family. In her younger years, Mai dreamed of becoming a teacher to bring literacy to the village children. But the path to that dream was rougher than anyone could imagine. While her peers were picked up and dropped off by their parents, she had to struggle on her own, studying and working odd jobs to make ends meet. On cold winter nights, she sat under an oil lamp, her hand trembling as she held a pen, her eyes welling up with tears because she missed her father and felt so alone on that journey. There were times when the loneliness made her feel as though she couldn't bear it any longer. She once wished someone would be there to offer a word of encouragement, to hold her hand just once. But then, as tears fell onto the notebook page, she realized that no one could live her life for her, nor could anyone walk her entire path for her. If she gave up, her entire family would face greater hardship. The younger children would lose an example to follow. It was in her solitude that she learned to comfort herself. I must try for my mother, for my siblings, and for my own dream. During those years, Ms. Mai experienced all the pains of being alone. Alone, she overcame illness. Alone, she battled gossip and slander. Alone, she rose after every fall. But it was also during those years that she grew more than ever before. She learned to smile at herself in the mirror. She learned to treat herself to a small cup of sweet soup after a long day. She learned to write diary entries, to listen to and soothe the sadness in her heart. The Buddha once taught that in life, there is no safer refuge than one's own mind. Miss Mai understood that true happiness lies not in having someone by your side at all times, but in knowing how to care for your own soul, even when no one is near. Alone, she learned to listen to the birds sing in the morning, to feel her heart throb. Alone, she gazed at the changing colors of the evening sky, to know that this life still holds many beauties. Alone, she read each page of a book to nourish and illuminate her mind. Thanks to this, loneliness was no longer a frightening abyss, but became a guiding light. It taught her to stand firm, to love herself, to courageously move forward. And steadfast in solitude, she found it easier to extend love to her students, colleagues, and those whose lives were even more difficult than hers. Her students often said that Teacher Mai was always gentle, always encouraging the children with a kind smile. But few knew that to achieve such gentleness, she had endured countless resilient, solitary days. If you have ever spent long nights where only sighs were your companions, if you have ever felt lost in this vast life, then remember that loneliness is not a punishment. Loneliness is the greatest lesson to cultivate our independence. It helps us understand that we ourselves are enough to be our own companion, enough to support ourselves, enough to walk forward. Sometimes we need to be alone to listen to our inner voice, to truly know what we desire. This life is inherently impermanent. People come and go. No one stays forever. If we don't learn to stand firm on our own, we will forever live in fear of loss. But when we know that even in solitude, we can smile, then when we have companions, that happiness becomes even more complete. And if they leave, we can still peacefully move forward, because we have ourselves as a support. Try sitting quietly in a room without a phone, without noise, with only your breath and your mind. Initially, you will feel uncomfortable, empty, and lacking. But if you are patient, you will gradually realize that in that stillness, your mind will be healed, calmed, and nourished. You will understand that you are not truly alone, because you still have breath, a beating heart, and life existing in every moment. Alone, we learn to love ourselves more. Alone, we learn to take care of our health, cook a delicious meal for ourselves, treat ourselves to a small trip. Alone, we learn to encourage ourselves after every failure. It's okay. I'll make it eventually. It is these simple self-reassurances that possess immense power to lift us up in moments when we feel like collapsing. And then one day, we will realize that loneliness is no longer frightening. It's like darkness that only allows the light of our inner self to shine. It's like winter that only helps us appreciate spring. It's like a test to see how much we have grown. And when we pass it, we will become more resilient, stronger, steadfast enough to face all of life's challenges. Ultimately, the lesson of solitude not only teaches us resilience, but also teaches us to cherish every encounter and connection. Once we are accustomed to standing firm on our own, we will no longer desperately cling or hold on to anyone. We love because we want to give, not because we fear losing. We accompany others for joy, not out of fear of loneliness. And that is the freedom, the inner peace that Buddhist teachings always remind us of. If today you are feeling lost, please smile a little. Consider time alone as a gift, an opportunity to return and care for yourself, to train your mind and heart. Remember that you are complete within yourself, and from that completeness, you will radiate love to the world. Solitude is not emptiness, but space for us to nourish our inner self. Solitude is not loneliness, but a journey to recognize our inner strength. And solitude is a precious lesson that teaches us that happiness lies not in having someone by our side, but in being able to smile even when we are alone. There are afternoons when the sunset descends by the river. The late afternoon sun casts a golden glow upon the water, and we suddenly realize that nothing in this world lasts forever. The water will recede, the sunlight will gradually fade. Today's boisterous laughter will eventually only remain in memories. Everything passes. Nothing can be held in our hands. Even we ourselves will grow old, and one day will return to dust. Impermanence is the nature of all things, yet we often forget it. We keep thinking happiness will stay with us forever. Loved ones will always be by our side. Youth will last, and love will never fade. It's not until one day it leaves that we startle, feel pain, and feel regret. The Buddha once taught that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. What arises will cease. What comes together will fall apart. This might sound simple, but to live with that truth is not easy at all. We can read sutras, we can memorize the Buddha's words, but when facing true loss, the heart still aches, tears still fall. And it is precisely from those moments of brokenness that we clearly see impermanence is not a distant philosophical concept, but a truth that touches our daily lives directly. It is present in every breath, in every falling leaf season, in every farewell. One morning, I accidentally sat drinking tea in a small shop in the Mekong Delta. Ms. Tu's sticky rice cart was set up right at the market corner. Steam rose from the hot, sticky rice pots. She had a stooped posture, kind eyes, and a voice as sweet as the river water in her homeland. Everyone who came to buy sticky rice received a smile, and she carefully wrapped each portion, adding a little peanuts, a green banana leaf for aesthetic appeal. Looking at her, everyone thought she was a serene, carefree woman, unburdened by anything. But when we chatted, I learned how many losses her life was filled with. She recounted that in her youth, her husband passed away from a severe illness. At that time, her children were small, and their home was empty, lacking much. She alone served as both father and mother. Many nights, watching her children sleep, tears flowed down her face. She only wished her husband were by her side to share some of the burden. But then the years passed. The children grew up, started their own families, and each went their own way. She stayed with her sticky rice cart as a way to keep herself busy, to maintain a connection with life. Some old acquaintances once asked why she didn't quit her job, why she didn't rest in her old age. She just smiled and said, "This sticky rice cart not only sustains my body, but also my soul. It helps me remember that everything in life passes, and only my own heart can decide between peace and suffering." Ms. Tu said that when her husband died, she was once desperate. But the more she suffered, the more she realized that no pain lasts forever. Tears will eventually dry, sorrow will eventually subside. Time is like a river, sweeping everything away, including the wounds in our hearts. She recounted that each morning, scooping hot, sticky rice for customers, she felt her heart lighten, knowing that a new day had arrived, and she still had the opportunity to offer a little warmth. Hearing her speak, I deeply felt what impermanence truly is. Impermanence is not meant to make us sad, but to remind us not to cling too tightly, because holding on achieves nothing. Clinging doesn't work. Only letting go is the way for the heart to be light. In that impermanence, we truly cherish every present moment. Appreciate every smile, every hug, every gentle word. The Buddha taught that life is inherently impermanent. Connections form and then dissolve. Knowing this, the heart doesn't suffer. In truth, impermanence is not meant for us to be afraid, but for us to love each other more while we still can. Like Ms. Tu, she experienced countless losses, but impermanence itself helped her grow in spirit, helped her live fully in every present moment. Each packet of sticky rice she wrapped contained not only the sweetness of the glutinous rice, but also the sweetness of a heart that had learned to accept. When we understand impermanence, we will stop blaming, stop resenting, stop tormenting ourselves. We will know that everything is temporary. Everything is like a passing cloud, like a fleeting breeze. If loved ones are still by your side today, cherish them. If family members are healthy today, care for them, because tomorrow may not be certain. That is not pessimism, but living truthfully with reality. And it is precisely when we live truthfully with reality that our hearts find peace. The lotus flowers in the pond don't bloom forever, but when they bloom, they are perfectly beautiful. Similarly, human life is short, but if we know how to love and give, then every day we live shines with meaning. Ms. Tu, with her small, sticky rice cart and frail figure, was in my eyes a great teacher, because she lived with the truth of impermanence. She transformed pain into peace, and she wrapped an entire life lesson in each warm packet of sticky rice for life. Therefore, when we face loss, remember that too is just a rain shower. Every rain shower eventually stops. We just need to wait patiently and step forward firmly. Because ultimately, only we ourselves can complete our own path. No one can walk it for us, nor can anyone live our life for us. And on that path, impermanence will be our companion, reminding us to live lightly, to love more, and to know how to let go of what is unnecessary. And if one day your heart is heavy because something has been lost, sit down, take a deep breath, and remember the Buddha's words. Everything will pass. All pain will dissipate like morning mist before the sun. What remains is a mind at peace. In life, perhaps all of us have been hurt at least once by the words or actions of others. Sometimes it's a family member, sometimes a friend, or even someone we've never met. If not properly addressed, that pain can become a smoldering wound, gradually transforming into resentment and blame, weighing down the heart like carrying a large stone on one's shoulders. We mistakenly believe that holding on to anger will make us stronger, but the more we cling to it, the more tired we become, and the more peace we lose. Forgiveness, therefore, is not an act of weakness, but rather a sign of maturity, a path to liberation for oneself. The Buddha once taught that holding on to resentment is no different than holding a burning coal to throw at others, but ultimately burning our own hand. Hatred, if held for too long, will erode the soul, making us lose the capacity for love and happiness. Forgiveness, in the spirit of Buddhist teachings, is not to justify others' mistakes, but for us to let go of the burden in our hearts, so our minds can be at ease and free. There is a beautiful image in nature that I often think of when talking about forgiveness. Rain. When the rain comes, the earth and sky become wet, dust is washed away, plants are cleansed. After the rain, the sky is clear and blue again, the sunlight bright. If we know how to forgive, our minds also become refreshing and light, like the earth and sky after that rain. Forgiveness does not diminish our worth. On the contrary, it makes our souls rest and more compassionate, knowing how to see everything with eyes of loving kindness. In life, many people think that forgiveness is to accept defeat, to be weak. But the truth is quite the opposite. Forgiveness is a sign of a mature soul. A mature person is not someone who never gets angry, but someone who knows when to stop, when to let go, and when to be forgiving at the right time. Forgiveness is like taking off a heavy garment so we can walk more lightly on our own journey. I remember a story about Mr. Tam, a friend I once met on a trip to the countryside. He was born into a poor family. His father died young, and his mother single-handedly toiled to raise 3 children. But in his youth, lacking sufficient love and guidance, Mr. Tam rebelled and fell into drinking and gambling. The turning point was one time, in a drunken rage, he accidentally, seriously injured his close friend. His friend carried resentment from then on, while Mr. Tam carried unending torment. For many years, he tried to atone for his mistake, sought ways to ask for forgiveness, but the friend steadfastly refused to speak to him. He recounted that some nights he couldn't sleep, just sat looking out at the dark yard, his heart heavy, as if a stone was pressing down on it. He lived with a sense of guilt, feeling unworthy of any joy. But then, after his mother's passing, he seemed to awaken. He realized that life is impermanent. What exists today may be lost tomorrow, and hatred cannot be carried with us. He chose to forgive himself, accept the past, neither blaming his friend nor tormenting himself anymore. He began to practice Buddhism, attended the village pagoda, chanted Buddha's name, and did good deeds. He said that the moment he decided to forgive himself, his mind suddenly felt much lighter, as if a heavy burden he had carried for so long had been put down. The miraculous thing was that a few years later, the very friend from before sought him out and offered forgiveness. They embraced in tears, and both realized that hatred had only caused them both suffering for so many years. If one of them had been willing to open their heart earlier, perhaps they wouldn't have lost so much valuable time. Mr. Tam's story is clear proof that forgiveness is not just salvation for others, but first and foremost, salvation for oneself. When we hold on to anger, we build a wall separating ourselves from happiness. But when we forgive, we break down that wall and let the light filter into our hearts. People often say that forgiving others is also forgiving ourselves, because each time we forgive, our minds expand, our hearts are more at peace, and we live in a lighter present. If we live forever in hatred, we will miss countless beautiful moments of life. Once, walking through a rice field during harvest season, I saw farmers carrying rice from the fields back home. The rice burdens were heavy, but their faces were radiant because they knew it was the fruit of many months of hard work. But I also thought that if they kept carrying without putting it down, they would surely be exhausted. Resentment in our hearts is the same. If we keep holding on to it without letting go, we ourselves will be depleted. Forgiveness is when we dare to put down that burden to continue life's journey with a tranquil soul. Buddhist teachings say that everything in life is impermanent. The person who hurts us today may no longer be present in our lives tomorrow. We and they are all beings in the cycle of samsara, carrying our own karma. Understanding this, our hearts find it easier to let go, easier to forgive. Because forgiveness is not just an act, but also wisdom, an awakening not to cause ourselves more suffering. If you are still carrying an old wound or some anger in your heart, please try for once to close your eyes. Take a deep breath and imagine yourself dropping a heavy stone into a river. The water will carry it away, leaving a calm surface. Forgiveness is like that. We put down the burden so our soul can return to its inherent peace. And please remember that this life is very short, very impermanent. Don't let petty hatreds steal away great joy and peace. Forgiveness is not for the other person to be at peace, but for our own heart to be tranquil. Because only when we forgive can we truly return to ourselves. Can we live fully in every present moment. In today's busy life, you have probably often found yourself tired from trying too hard, chasing after work, chasing after what others expect, chasing after endless comparisons between ourselves and others. Then, in a moment of silence, sitting and looking out the window, we ask ourselves what exactly we have lost on this path. In reality, there is a truth that we sometimes forget. Happiness doesn't come from grand things. It comes from simplicity, from the small things around us. Just a warm meal, the crisp laughter of children, a cool breeze rustling through the eaves, or a quiet afternoon listening to the rain fall is enough to calm our hearts, to feel peace as if the whole world is smiling. The ancients had a saying, "Contentment brings to perpetual joy," meaning knowing when one has enough always brings joy. But in modern times, knowing when one has enough is a luxury. Everyone wants a little more money, more fame, more attention. And then our hearts are never at peace, always as if an invisible hand is urging us. You must try harder. You must surpass others. You must achieve even more. But try asking, have you ever truly stopped to look? It is precisely while we are busy chasing that more that we have forgotten countless precious moments that will never return. The Buddha once taught that the one who knows contentment, though lying on the ground, finds peace. The one who knows no contentment, though in heaven, will not be satisfied. That saying is like a cool breeze blowing through the soul, reminding us that the true value of human life lies not in how much we possess, but in whether we know how to appreciate what we already have. Simplicity itself is a gift, but often we take it for granted, thinking that a simple, poor life is one of lacking. In truth, living simply is an art. That art helps the soul to be light, knowing how to let go of unnecessary things to return to oneself. In Buddhist teachings, I remember once going to the countryside during harvest season. In the morning, when the sun was still nestled behind the bamboo grove, the farmers were already in the fields. They laughed boisterously, their hands swiftly cutting bundles of golden ripe rice in the morning sun. Sweat glistened on their faces. They didn't have tall houses with wide gates, no luxury cars or silken robes, but on every face shone genuine joy. After a morning's work, they sat resting by the edge of the field with just a bottle of green tea and a few hot, boiled sweet potatoes. Yet, the entire field echoed with laughter. Seeing that scene, I asked myself, could happiness really be that simple? It's not about having a lot, but about appreciating the little we have and then sharing it with each other wholeheartedly. But to live simply, we must learn to let go of desires. Desire is like a fire. The more we fuel it, the stronger it burns, never reaching an end. Some people think that just one more house, one more car, a few more digits in their bank account, and they would feel enough. But once achieved, we still feel unsatisfied, wanting more. And so, human life becomes an endless chase, tiring, exhausting, but never reaching happiness. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha once said, "Those with many desires suffer greatly. Those with few desires suffer little. Those with no desires, no longer bound, truly find peace." These teachings are simple, yet they are like a clear mirror reflecting life. How much of the suffering we carry largely stems from our own endless desires. If we know how to stop, if we know how to say enough at the right time, how much peace our hearts could find. There's a small story I want to share with you about Ms. Han, a woman in the countryside. Her life was inherently hard. From a young age, she had to make a living doing all sorts of jobs to raise her children. Her husband died young, and the entire burden of the family fell on her shoulders. During those years, she sometimes resented her fate, longed to have more money to provide fully for her children. But then one time, coming home from work in the rain, she suddenly stopped. She didn't rush home as usual, nor did she complain to heaven and earth. She stood still, looked up at the sky, letting the cold raindrops fall on her. Initially, it was amazement, followed by a strange feeling. She realized she had lived too hastily for too long, constantly preoccupied with making a living, forgetting that even walking in the rain could be a joy. From that day on, Ms. Han changed. She learned to be content with what she had, learned to smile at small joys. A simple meal with all her children present. An afternoon sitting under the eaves, listening to the rain fall. Or simply a wildflower blooming by the pond. She said, living simply is so light, she no longer felt lacking. Ms. Han's story suggests that happiness sometimes only comes when we dare to stop. In the rain of life, some rush to find shelter, some complain impatiently. But there are also those who learn to walk calmly. And that very calmness opens the heart and lightens the soul. Have you noticed? When we live too complexly, our hearts also become heavy. Our houses are filled with possessions, but our hearts feel empty. Our work schedules are packed, yet we still feel a sense of emptiness. Relationships are tangled, but we feel increasingly lonely. In contrast, someone who lives simply possess few things, but feels at peace. Because in that simplicity, they find space to breathe, to listen, to smile. Nature is always a great teacher in showing us simplicity. Look at a blooming flower. It doesn't need to flaunt itself, doesn't need to compete, but its fragrance and beauty are enough to move people's hearts. Gaze at a river. It quietly flows without struggle, yet it nourishes many lands along its banks. Look at a rice field, needing only enough sun and rain. Then in season, it bears heavy grains, caring nothing for fame or gain. All these things seem to remind us that life can inherently be simple. It's only our hearts that are too complex. One day, try spending a morning without rushing, just sitting quietly on your porch, sipping a hot cup of tea, watching the sun slowly rise, listening to the birds sing, the rustle of leaves. At that moment, you will understand that happiness is not far away. It exists in every moment, in every breath, if we know how to stop and appreciate. Living simply is also living mindfully. Because mindfulness helps us return to the present moment, not to be swept away by the past or worries about the future. When we eat, just eat mindfully, fully experiencing the flavor of each bite of rice. We will feel grateful to heaven and earth, grateful for the efforts of so many people. When we walk, just walk mindfully, feeling our feet touch the ground. We will see the wondrous life existing in every step. Life is inherently impermanent. Everything we try to hold on to will eventually be lost. Wealth, status, fame, even this very body. But if in every day we are still alive, we live simply, know how to love, know how to be grateful, then each day is already a gift. And when we close our eyes and pass away, we will have no regrets for having lived fully. Dear friend, practicing simple living doesn't mean abandoning everything or leaving life behind. Living simply is learning how to keep what is truly necessary and let go of unnecessary things. Just like cleaning our house, getting rid of unused items, the space becomes spacious and airy. Similarly, when our soul knows how to let go of unnecessary desires, our heart becomes light and free. Remember that happiness is not a destination, but a journey. And on that journey, every simple step, every simple smile, every simple joy is happiness. Learn to look at life with innocent eyes, to see that even a drop of morning dew, a gentle breeze, can move us. Just as Ms. Han learned to walk in the rain, you too can learn to smile at your own life in any circumstance. Even if life is difficult, even if there are still tiring days, as long as we maintain simplicity in our souls, peace will always be present. When we live simply, we will find no need to prove anything to the world, no need to chase after others, no need to strain ourselves for recognition. We just need to be ourselves, sincere and unadorned, like a wild flower blooming by the roadside, not flaunting itself yet, still radiant in its own way. And then we will realize a simple yet profound truth. Happiness has never been far away. It is always within us, in every ordinary thing that we can touch with a grateful heart and an awakened mind. There are afternoons when we sit alone on the porch, watching the rain slowly fall onto the old tiled roof. The sound of the rain is like a whisper from heaven and earth, marking the rhythm of countless thoughts in our hearts. We suddenly realize that most of life's fatigue isn't due to overly heavy work, nor necessarily because people are too harsh, but because our own hearts are constantly filled with too many ambitions, desires, and expectations. The greater the desire, the heavier the heart. We keep chasing after what we haven't achieved, ultimately losing peace right where we stand. The Buddha once taught that the root of suffering is craving. Craving is not just wanting more wealth, status, or fame, but also clinging to what we like, to what we wish to hold on to forever. But in the cycle of impermanence, nothing is permanent. The more we try to cling, the more easily we feel disappointed. The more we try to gather, the more we worry about losing. We live in a vicious cycle of satisfaction and disappointment, so our minds are never at rest. Do you realize that sometimes it is precisely what seem like noble ambitions that wear us down? We want our children to be more successful than others, and then inadvertently place the heavy burden of pressure on their shoulders. We want to be praised by others, neglecting the value of simplicity. We want everything to go our way, but when has life ever operated solely according to our own wishes? Sometimes, even a small unfulfilled desire is enough to throw our hearts into turmoil. And thus, we weave afflictions for ourselves. When we let go of some desires, the mind will be like a river. No longer blocked, it can flow naturally, clear, and light. A person without desires is not one without dreams, but one who knows how to stop, knows when they have enough, knows how to cherish what they have. Because happiness, in truth, lies not in how much we hold, but in how light our hearts feel when we walk. I recall the story of Mrs. Lan in a small village by the mountainside. She was a diligent woman. Her husband died young, and she single-handedly struggled to raise 3 children. Her whole life was spent toiling, hoping her children would have a more prosperous life than hers. But then, as her children grew up, instead of feeling at peace, she felt increasingly anxious. She always wanted her children to have bigger houses, nicer cars, higher positions than others. When her children didn't achieve what she expected, she fell into disappointment, blame, and even sorrow and illness. One day, she visited the pagoda on a late summer afternoon. The bell tolled, and the smoke of incense drifted gently in the serene space. She heard the abbot preach, "One who holds too many desires is no different than one carrying a huge burden on their shoulders. The further they walk, the more their steps tremble with fatigue. Only when they know how to put down the burden will they see the world as vast and expansive. Will their steps feel light? Those words pierced her heart. She was silent, then burst into tears. From that day on, she learned to let go of some of her expectations for her children. She no longer blamed her son when he came home late from work, no longer compared her daughter when she was simpler than her friends, no longer tormented herself when life didn't go as planned. She gradually learned to appreciate the family dinners, the simple smiles of her children and grandchildren, or simply sitting down in the early morning to drink tea and listen to the birds sing in the garden. Her desires lessened, and her heart opened. From someone who was always frowning and sad, she became refreshed, peaceful, and her health also significantly improved. Her children, seeing their mother's change, also felt peace spread. Through Mrs. Lan's story, we see that letting go of desires doesn't make us lose anything. On the contrary, it gives us back a lighter, freer life. The ancients had a saying, "Contentment brings restore perpetual joy." This very contentment is the foundation for our minds to be at peace, for afflictions to naturally depart. Excessive ambition is like a jar filled to the brim with water that we keep wanting to pour more into. The water can only overflow, losing its balance. Whereas if we know to pour just enough, the jar will always be full, always intact. Life is the same. Happiness is not about accumulating more, but about appreciating and finding joy in what we already have. Dear friend, perhaps right now, you too are carrying many aspirations. Some are legitimate aspirations. Some are natural desires. But please, don't let them become shackles that bind you. Remember the Buddha's teaching. Few desires, knowing enough, body and mind always at peace. If each day we can reduce one desire, we will gain a little more peace. If we can put down a heavy expectation, we will have a broader sky for our soul. Ultimately, letting go of desires is a journey back to inner freedom. Inner freedom is not having everything, but not being bound by anything. Inner freedom is when we smile at a flower blooming in the early morning, peacefully watch clouds drift over a mountain peak, calmly drink a warm cup of tea on a quiet afternoon. Inner freedom is when we live fully in the present, no longer chasing distant things and missing the peace that is already present. And friend, believe that when greed lessens, afflictions will naturally depart, like a rain shower after a scorching day cools the barren garden. Your heart will also become lighter, so that every step is a free step on life's path. That is the simple happiness that anyone can reach, if only we dare to let go, to return to ourselves. There are days in life when we feel utterly exhausted, tired from arguments, tired from misunderstandings, tired from thoughtless words that cut deep into our hearts. We walk through a bustling life, jostling in crowds, everyone wanting more for themselves, everyone wanting to be recognized, to be right, to win. Yet, have we ever sat down and paused for a moment to see that sometimes choosing to yield, choosing silence, choosing to live virtuously is not a loss, but a gift for the soul? A tranquility beyond compare. In this stormy life, everyone yearns to find peace, But peace doesn't come from winning every argument, nor from accumulating much wealth or fame. Peace truly appears only when our mind is no longer rippled with hatred, when our heart chooses kindness in dealing with everyone. The Buddha once taught, "Conquering thousands of armies is not as great as conquering oneself. Conquering oneself is the greatest victory." That teaching is not just for us to remember, but to reflect on in every moment of life. Because conquering oneself is nothing other than daring to choose goodness, daring to choose silence when necessary, daring to choose to yield to maintain a peaceful mind. Many people think that goodness is weakness, spinelessness, being suppressed by life. But in truth, goodness is a very great strength. It's like soft water, seemingly weak, yet it can wear down boulders over years. Goodness is not noisy, not boastful, but quietly transforms a whole life. A person who lives virtuously in their heart has sown seeds of peace, and sooner or later will reap sweet fruits. There is a simple story about a bricklayer in central Vietnam that I once heard. His name was Nam. His whole life was tied to construction work, enduring sun and rain on building sites. Mr. Nam was born into a poor family. His childhood was difficult. He never learned much, only familiar with calloused hands and continuous sweat on his brow. His life was by no means easy, yet everyone in the village respected and loved him, because he was gentle, honest, and never quarreled with anyone. One time, on a construction site, the manager made a calculation error, causing the workers' wages to be short. His fellow workers were frustrated, argued loudly, even threatened to quit. But Mr. Nam just remained silent, smiled, and quietly said, "Look, work is hard enough. If they made a mistake, they'll fix it. Getting angry won't gain us anything, and will just ruin friendships." Having said that, he returned to continue working without a single word of complaint. The manager later realized his mistake and found a way to compensate the workers himself. Everyone received their full pay, and everyone remembered how Mr. Nam chose to yield to maintain harmony. Looking at that story, we clearly see one thing. Sometimes silence is a strength. It's not because we are afraid that we are silent, but because we are wise enough to understand that arguing doesn't make us richer, doesn't make our lives lighter, but only burdens our souls more. The Buddha taught that hatred does not cease by hatred. By love alone does it cease. That is an eternal truth. When Mr. Nam chose silence, chose goodness, he did not allow the fire of hatred to flare up. He watered the seeds of peace, not only within himself, but also in those around him. Life is like that. If everyone always wants more, the whole world will be filled with jealousy and resentment. But if each person knows how to choose a little yielding, a little goodness, then this world will be much warmer. Choosing to yield does not mean we lose. It means we have sown a seed of kindness. And that seed will one day sprout into blessings, just like Mr. Nam. Although he wasn't wealthy or high-ranking, everyone in the village respected him, and wherever he went, he was greeted and helped. Isn't that the greatest treasure in human life? The Buddha taught that in the 8 worldly winds of gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute, pleasure and pain, all are merely fleeting winds. Only when our mind rests in goodness can these 8 winds not stir our inner self. Goodness, compassion, and honesty are the roots of that inner peace. Virtuous people are not afraid of losing out because they understand that losing a little profit in exchange for a light soul is the greatest gain. Compassionate people are not afraid of being deceived because they know that everyone has their own karma, their moments of mistake, and forgiveness is the way to help each other grow. Honest people are not afraid of being misunderstood because they know the truth will eventually come to light, while dishonesty only burdens the mind. Sometimes, living virtuously also means we accept solitude, because in a chaotic world, a virtuous person can easily be seen as different, easily considered foolish. But those who live long enough, those who go through enough ups and downs, will eventually realize that only goodness remains in the end. Money, fame, status will all vanish with impermanence. But love, righteousness, genuine sincerity are what remain in others' hearts forever. Imagine, one late autumn afternoon, we sit on the porch watching yellow leaves fall. Life is like that leaf. It is green. It withers. It falls. It blows away. All follow the law of impermanence. But if the leaf falls to the ground and becomes fertilizer, nourishing the tree's roots, then that falling is no longer meaningless. Our life is the same. If we choose goodness, then no matter what circumstances we fall into, we are still nurturing good things for life. And that is how we return to ourselves, return to a vast and compassionate soul, unclouded by worldly dust. People often say that in life one should leave behind a good reputation. But that good reputation doesn't come from what we boast about, but from the small actions we sow every day. A kind word, an act of help, a moment of yielding, silence at the right time, honesty in speech. These seemingly small things are precisely the foundation for us to build a peaceful life. Looking back at life, we will see goodness is not a loss, but an accumulation. Each time we choose goodness, we are accumulating merits. Each time we choose compassion, we are accumulating love. And each time we choose honesty, we are accumulating trust. These are three priceless assets that money cannot buy. And these three things will also be our baggage as we walk alone on the path back to ourselves, steadfast and at peace. Therefore, if you are tired, if you feel you are losing out by living virtuously, please remember the story of Mr. Nam, the bricklayer from central Vietnam. An ordinary person with nothing outstanding, yet by living kindly and compassionately, he left in others' hearts a sense of respect. He taught us a lesson. Goodness is not weakness, but the greatest strength of the soul. Because only strong people are brave enough not to retaliate, not to compete, not to harbor hatred. And when you choose goodness, you not only beautify your own mind, but also spread peace to those around you. Just like a candle, once lit, it can light thousands of other candles without diminishing its own light. The goodness within you is the same. It can spread, illuminating the hearts of many others. And that is how this world will have less suffering, less jealousy, and a little more human kindness. Dear friend, remember one thing. Human life is inherently short. Everything will pass with impermanence. So what remains but the way we have lived? Choose goodness. Choose to yield. Choose silence. Choose honesty. So that one day, when you close your eyes, you can smile, knowing that you have lived a life worth living, a life not wasted, a life full of peace. There are days when you sit quietly in the dead of night, looking back at the journey you've traveled, suddenly realizing you've been through so many challenges, yet haven't truly understood what it means to mature. People often think maturity is when you can endure much suffering, can go through many falls and still rise. But in truth, the greater meaning of maturity lies not in how many storms you have been through, but in whether you have learned to stop when necessary, let go when you must, and smile calmly, even when your heart is still in pain. Maturity is not donning a strong facade to hide weaknesses, but rather when you accept that you have limits, fears, and losses, yet can still continue to live peacefully. Like a lotus blooming from the mud, the flower doesn't reject the mud, but from within the mud rises to spread its fragrance. The Buddha once taught that human life is inherently impermanent. What comes together will fall apart. What is born will perish. Understanding impermanence is when we truly learn to mature, because then we no longer cling to everything in suffering, but know how to smile when things pass. One afternoon in the village, I once witnessed an elderly mother seeing her son off to the city to work as a laborer. The mother's hand trembled as she held her son's, advising him to take care of his health wherever he went, and to remember to live virtuously. Her son, then 25, had bright eyes, but a trembling voice. He thought that maturity was being able to leave home and earn a living through his own sweat and effort. However, after many years in the unfamiliar city, he realized that maturity was not just about doing many things or earning a lot of money, but also knowing how to live so that one's heart is no longer heavy, knowing how to forgive oneself when things don't go as desired, and knowing how to let go of what no longer belongs to you. Maturity sometimes comes in the moment you sit alone after an argument. Instead of wanting to prove you were right, you choose silence to maintain peace for both. That is not weakness, but wisdom. As the Buddha once reminded in the scriptures, conquering thousands of armies is not as great as conquering oneself. A truly mature person is one who doesn't need to win or lose against life, but only needs to conquer their own angry mind, their own clinging mind. There is a story I want to tell you about Mr. Bin, a bricklayer in a small village in central Vietnam. He was once a gruff young man, easily angered, always believed that anyone who disagreed with him must be argued with to the end. But then tragedy struck when his young wife left, leaving him with their daughter, barely 3 years old. At night, when his child cried for her mother, he realized how much his heart ached. Before, he could fling harsh words at his wife just to win an argument. But now, standing before his child's clear eyes, he realized how meaningless all those disputes were. From that day on, he learned to control his anger, learned to let go of arguments, because he understood maturity isn't about winning an argument, but about preserving his daughter's smile, maintaining peace in his home. Looking at Mr. Bin now, few would believe that he was a hot-tempered man. He worked all day under the scorching sun, but in the evening still made time to tell his child stories, to teach her to write each letter. He no longer sought joy in drinking parties, but found happiness when his child giggled in his arms. Maturity taught him that sometimes it's only when we lose something that we truly understand its value. And only by letting go can we truly hold on to what is most important in life. There will be times when you have to walk alone. No one will stay forever to comfort you. No one can bear your sorrows for you. It is in those solitary steps that you clearly see that maturity is when you can wipe away your own tears and then smile and stand up. Not because life has become less harsh, but because your mind has become more steadfast. When you walk through darkness and still keep a lamp in your heart, that light will lead you further than anything else. Maturity doesn't mean you no longer cry. Tears sometimes still fall. But instead of blaming life, you thank those tears for helping your soul become softer, like rain falling on a field, which, though making it wet, also makes the soil more fertile. A mature person is one who knows how to smile, even amidst suffering, because they understand that suffering is just one part of the journey to happiness. If one day you find yourself tired from having to carry everything, sit down quietly, take a deep breath, and tell yourself that you don't need to be strong in front of everyone. You just need to be honest with yourself to see that within your mind there is still a peaceful place, a place where all worries can be released. That is the greatest step of maturity, when you are no longer chasing the approval of others, but knowing how to turn inward to find peace. The Buddha once said, "Human life is like a bubble, like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. All are fragile and quickly fade." Understanding this, you will stop blaming those who have hurt you, for they are also just clouds passing through our lives. You will cherish every moment you are still alive, still breathing, still able to love. And you will realize that maturity is not achieving everything, but being able to smile even when you lose something, because you have learned the lesson of impermanence. Remember that every step in life has meaning. Whether it's a step in happiness or in suffering, all lead you to a place within your soul. And when you can sit down and look back at the journey you've traveled without longer resentment, no longer regret, only gratitude remains. That is when you have truly matured. Through this, I want to convey to you a belief that maturity is not a destination, but a flow. In that flow, you may stumble, you may cry, you may feel lost, but then you will rise again and walk forward again. And each time, your heart will become more resilient, your soul will become more open, and your smile will become more peaceful. That is the true meaning of maturity, knowing how to let go, knowing how to smile, knowing how to love, and knowing how to return to oneself. Every morning, when the first light of dawn gently touches the window, perhaps many of us quickly jump up, anxious for a new day with so much work, so many plans, so many constant worries. We often chase after things yet to come, think about things already past, and rarely ask ourselves if we have truly lived fully for a new day. Some people wake up feeling heavy with work, with daily sustenance, with binding relationships, and with unnamed worries. But if we stop for a moment, listen to our own breath, we will realize how precious this life is, that a day passing is not a given, but a great gift. The Buddha once taught that a human body is hard to obtain. Life is fragile. Today, we still have the chance to open our eyes and greet the dawn. That is already a blessing. Remind ourselves each morning that we only need to live a day fully. A peaceful day. A day with a smile on our lips is enough to feel that life is worth living. In the hurried pace of society, we often forget that the present is where we truly exist. The past has gone. The future has not arrived. Only this moment, this instant, is where we can touch and live with it. Some people spend their whole lives chasing money, status, fame, until their hair turns gray, only to look back and realize they had never lived a day fully. They lived in dreams, in a pursuit with no end. The one who knows how to live is not the one who has everything, but the one who knows how to stop, how to smile at a roadside flower, how to listen to the birds sing in the morning, how to place a hand on their chest and feel their heartbeat. Living a day fully means we are aware that today could be our last day. And when we are aware of that, we will cherish every smallest moment. We will stop baseless anger, stop worrying about trivial things, stop wasting time on negative thoughts. We will want to use every second, every minute of today to sow seeds of peace, seeds of love, and seeds of happiness. I remember once the Buddha was asked by a disciple, "Revered one, human life is so short. How can one not waste a lifetime?" He smiled compassionately and said, "Live mindfully every second, every minute, for the present moment is life itself." That answer, though seemingly simple, contained great wisdom. Living mindfully is not a distant concept, but knowing how to return to everything we are doing, to every breath, every step. When drinking a cup of tea, just drink the tea, not letting the mind wander to other thoughts. When walking in the yard, just feel your steps, the rustle of leaves, the breeze through your hair. When sitting with family, just sit there fully, not letting your mind drift far away. A day lived like that, though short, is incredibly complete. I always remember the story of a farmer in a small village. He lived in an old tiled roof house with a lush green vegetable garden, a few chickens and ducks. Every morning, he woke up very early, watered the vegetables, fed the chickens, then sat on the porch sipping a hot cup of tea. People in the village often asked why he didn't go further to trade, earn more money, to renovate his house, to have a more prosperous life. He just smiled kindly and said, "Every day I can tend my vegetable garden with my own hands, watch the sun rise, hear my children and grandchildren laugh, and drink a hot cup of tea. That makes me very rich. My wealth is the peace in my soul." It sounds simple, but isn't that precisely the secret to living a full day? That farmer didn't compare himself to life, didn't let his heart be swept away by endless desires, but chose to cherish every present moment. Happiness is sometimes that simple, yet we often miss it because we keep chasing distant things. A Zen master once taught his disciples, "Every morning when you open your eyes, smile 3 times, because you still have a new day to live." Don't consider that normal, because countless people went to sleep last night and didn't wake up this morning. That teaching makes us startle. Indeed, we often take our existence for granted. But human life is inherently impermanent. No one knows what tomorrow will bring. Cherishing the present is also being grateful for this life, grateful for every breath still entering and leaving our chest. When we place joy in our hearts and wear a smile on our lips, right from the morning, we will find that day lighter. And even if we encounter difficulties, we will feel more at ease. Joy is not something grand, but rather the attitude we choose for ourselves in every moment. I witnessed a worker at a brick factory. The work was arduous, the pay not high, and life was not abundant. But every morning, he still sang softly while cycling to work, his face radiant with a smile. One time, a friend asked, "Why are you still so cheerful, even though life is hard?" He replied, "Because every morning I can still cycle on the windy country road, still see the sunlight, still work with my own hands. That's enough to make me happy. I don't want to waste another day in sadness, because who knows if tomorrow will come." His words made people fall silent. Perhaps he wasn't materially rich, but he was spiritually rich. He was truly living a full day because he knew how to place joy in his own heart, rather than waiting for circumstances. Cherishing the present is also cherishing those who are present with us. How many times have we missed meals with parents because of work? How many times have we not listened to our children just because we were constantly busy? How many times have we not said loving words to loved ones, just thinking there was still plenty of time? But then there comes a time when we realize it was all too late. Loved ones were gone. Parents couldn't wait any longer. Children had grown up and drifted away from our embrace. Living a day fully is not just living for ourselves, but also devoting our whole hearts to loving those around us. Sometimes a hug, a word of inquiry, a family meal are enough to make a day meaningful. The Buddha taught that if you know how to cherish every karmic connection, you will find nothing is small. A blooming flower, a shared smile, a tight handhold, all are miracles. Reminding ourselves like this, we will slow down and love more. Life is impermanent. Today may be full, but tomorrow is not certain. Therefore, every morning when you wake up, remind yourself that today you will live as if this is your last day. Living like that doesn't mean rushing, but cherishing every moment, every small thing. We will stop wasting time on resentment, stop regretting the past, stop worrying about the future, and focus all our attention on the present. When we eat fully. When we walk fully. When we work wholeheartedly. When we love truly. A day passing like that, though short, is full and complete. Imagine that every morning when the sun rises, instead of frowning with so many worries, we open the window and take a deep breath of the cool, fresh air. We offer a gentle smile and tell ourselves that today will be a meaningful day. Let that small joy stay with us throughout the day, so that every task we do is lighter, so that everyone we meet feels warmer. Placing joy in our hearts and wearing a smile on our lips is not just to comfort ourselves, but also to spread positive energy to everyone around us. A smile can dispel fatigue. A gentle word can resolve misunderstandings. A friendly glance can make others feel appreciated. That is how we contribute to making this life more beautiful, even in a short day. Cherishing the present is the path back to oneself. When we stop to live a day fully, we are no longer chasing external things, but turning inward to listen to ourselves. We realize what we truly need, what brings us peace, what makes us happy. And then we will also easily let go of unnecessary things. All resentment, all greed, all sorrow becomes small when we live truly fully in this moment. Because the present moment is the gateway to happiness. No need to wait until success. No need to wait until completeness. Right now, in every breath, we can already touch happiness. So, dear friend, remind yourself each morning that today you will live fully. Place joy in your heart. Wear a smile on your lips. Step out with an open soul. Live as if this is the only day you have left. When you can do that, you will see that a short day also becomes a fulfilling life. And when each day passes fully, this entire life will also be full. In life, sometimes we humans easily forget a very simple yet profoundly deep truth. That is, everything that comes to us today has a cause. It is the result of a sowing process from before. Just like a rice seed placed in the earth needs time, sunlight, water, the farmer's nurturing hands, and then one day it will bloom. Similarly, the joys, sorrows, successes, or failures in our lives do not come by chance. They are karma operating naturally and fairly. The one who knows this will live more peacefully, less blaming, less resentful, replaced by gratitude and understanding. Many people, when facing difficulties, often ask themselves why they suffer so much, why life is so unfair. But if we calm our hearts and look deeply, we will see that suffering also has its reasons. It could be the result of past mistakes, a lesson life gives us to grow, or even a karmic connection that helps us awaken and return to ourselves. The Buddha once taught that beings suffer in the cycle of samsara because they do not understand karma. If one clearly understands karma, there will be no more delusion. That saying is like a gentle reminder that everything that happens to us has its root cause, and nothing is meaningless. When we understand this, our hearts begin to feel grateful. Grateful for those who once hurt us, for through them, we learned resilience. Grateful for difficulties and challenges, for through them, we grew and became strong. Grateful for even moments of peace, for through them, we realize happiness is not far away. It lies right in every breath, every smile, every simple meal shared with family. Gratitude is not just an empty phrase, but a practice of the soul. When our mind is grateful, afflictions naturally decrease, anger subsides, and love blossoms. There's a small story about a poor farmer I once met in the countryside. His life was not easy. He had to go to the fields from dawn, his hands calloused from hoeing and plowing, his back stooped from carrying burdens. But when asked if he suffered, he just smiled kindly and said, "What suffering? Having the strength to work is a blessing. Being able to sow seeds, watch the rice turn green, hear the wind blow across the field, that's enough for me." That answer was like a bell resonating in my mind. While many people living in the city with abundant material possessions still complain, a poor farmer can find happiness in his own sweat and the sun and wind. Because he understood karma, understood that you reap what you sow, you work, you eat, and most importantly, in his heart, he always had gratitude towards heaven and earth, towards the rice grains, and even towards the difficult days. Gratitude is not only for good things. Sometimes we need to learn to be grateful for adversity too. Poor workers toil tirelessly in the factory. Sometimes their hands and feet are covered in oil and grease, their eyes red from lack of sleep. But it is precisely thanks to that work that their families have food and their children can go to school. If we only look at the hardship, we will see only suffering in life. But if we look with gratitude, we will see love, responsibility, and sacrifice within it. Karma operates this way, not missing anyone. Every drop of sweat shed today is the cause for the family to be well fed tomorrow. Gratitude also needs to be cultivated from small things. When we receive a bowl of rice, let us remember how many people contributed their efforts to create it. The farmer who sows, the transporter, the seller, the cook, all contribute so that we can have a meal. If we are ungrateful, we will inadvertently live in ignorance, only knowing how to demand and complain. But when we are grateful, we will eat mindfully, clearly seeing each grain of rice as the crystallization of heaven and earth and human effort. The Buddha once taught, "The one who is grateful and repays kindness is a saint. The one who is ungrateful and treacherous is an evil person." In truth, gratitude is not only a virtue, but also a path leading us to happiness. A young woman once confided that her life was full of failures. Work was not going well, relationships broke down, and her health also declined. In despair, she sought solace at a pagoda. After a period of listening to Dharma and practicing, she realized one thing. Instead of constantly complaining about her fate, she began to practice expressing gratitude every day. Grateful for her parents who gave birth to her, grateful for friends who accompanied her, grateful even for those who caused her pain. Because thanks to them, she learned to appreciate herself more. Strangely, from that day on, her soul felt light, her smile returned, and her work gradually progressed smoothly. This was not a miracle, but a change in perspective. Through gratitude, she transformed the karma within her own mind. Practicing gratitude does not mean denying suffering. Suffering is still there, but instead of resisting, we embrace it as an essential part of life. Just like when rain falls, instead of complaining, we can smile because, thanks to the rain, the earth is nourished. Plants are revitalized. Suffering is the same. It comes to cleanse bad habits so that we become purer and more resilient. The one who is grateful for suffering will not collapse, but will walk forward firmly. Because in their hearts, they have understood karma and the meaning of all experiences. Someone once said that gratitude is the key that opens the door to happiness. Because when we are grateful, we no longer feel lacking, no longer chase after unreal illusions, but return to appreciate what we already have. The one who lives with gratitude will see every day as a gift. Even this breath, this beating heart, is already a miracle. When our mind is filled with gratitude, we will no longer compare or compete, no longer be insatiably greedy, but only wish to share love and sow more good deeds for life. And so, karma will continue to operate, bringing us even more good things. When night falls, if you can calm your heart and think about what has passed during the day, you will find countless things to be grateful for. thankful for waking up in the morning, thankful that our eyes can still see the sunrise, thankful that our feet can still walk, thankful that our loved ones are still by our side. Even if you experienced a very tiring day, still be grateful that you had the opportunity to learn from that challenge. Gratitude is not avoiding reality, but accepting reality with an open and steadfast mindset. Karma teaches us that you reap what you sow. If we sow anger, we will receive suffering. If we sow love, we will reap peace. And when we sow gratitude, the fruits we receive are happiness. Not distant happiness, but happiness in every present moment. Imagine a golden, ripe rice field, each grain plump under the afternoon sun. That is the result of many days of care. Gratitude is like that seed. If we patiently sow it, one day it will blossom, bringing lasting peace to the soul. Therefore, in the journey of letting go to return to oneself, gratitude is an indispensable part. When we are grateful, we stop blaming, stop clinging, stop demanding. When we are grateful, life feels lighter. Our steps are calmer. Even if we walk alone on a long road, we won't feel lonely, because every step is an act of gratitude for life. And then we will realize happiness has never left. It is still there. In every moment, we know how to stop, take a deep breath, and smile at ourselves. Perhaps in life, everyone has experienced a phase where everything seems to turn its back on them. At such times, the path ahead is obscured like a thick fog, and our hearts are unsteady like a small boat drifting on large waves. On such days, we easily fall into a sense of deadlock, disappointment, even despair. But if we quietly sit down and take a deep breath, we will realize that challenges do not come to crush us, but to teach us an important lesson. A lesson about the strength of our own inner self. The ancients once said that it is in times of danger that one truly knows how strong a person is. And in Buddhist teachings, it is also reminded that human life is inherently a sea of suffering. If we don't learn to steady our minds, we will never swim across. Looking back, we see that no one can live this life for us. No matter how much parents love their children, no matter how kind friends may be, whenever we face pain in our hearts, we can only feel it ourselves, overcome it ourselves. The Buddha once taught that humans are the owners of their karma, the inheritors of their karma. In other words, we ourselves must take responsibility for every choice, every thought, every action. So when life places us before great winds, we have the right to blame fate or complain about our circumstances, but that only makes us weaker. If we know how to turn inward, maintain a peaceful mind, look directly at challenges as if looking at a strict teacher, we will learn to stand firm with our own inner strength. Imagine an autumn morning in the countryside. The sky was clear blue, dewdrops still lingered on the grass blades, and a gentle breeze swept across the golden rice fields. The farmer, with a stooped back, still took firm steps towards the field, holding an old hoe, his eyes shining with serenity. His life had never been easy. Each season was a challenge, sometimes drought, sometimes floods, sometimes pests. Some seasons were bountiful, some were a total loss. Yet they still didn't abandon their fields, didn't abandon their rice, because they knew that sowing seeds today might not immediately yield sweet fruits. But without perseverance, there would never be a harvest. In the farmer's patience, we see the image of a steadfast, resilient Buddhist practitioner, undiscouraged by adversity. They overcame challenges not because life became easier, but because their minds became stronger. I once met a farmer over 60 years old. He recounted that when he was young, his family was so poor that their meals consisted mostly of sweet potatoes. He and his wife toiled year-round, but still couldn't get enough to eat. One year, a great flood came and swept away all their rice fields. Seeing his efforts washed away, he once wanted to give up. But then, thinking of his young children, he forced himself to get up and work odd jobs, harvest for hire, and gradually rebuilt. He said that without those difficult years, he would never have learned resilience. Thanks to these upheavals, he understood that within every person lies a great strength, waiting for challenges to ignite it. His words reminded me of a Buddhist saying, "Just as a lotus grows from mud without being defiled by it, so too the wise live amidst the defilements of the world with their minds still pure." Challenges are the mud, and our inner strength is the lotus seed. Only when immersed in the mud does the lotus seed germinate, grow, and reach out to bloom. Without the mud, would there be a fragrant lotus? Without suffering, would we know what happiness is? Therefore, instead of blaming fate, let us learn to smile at adversity, for it is precisely what helps us grow. In modern life, challenges do not only come from natural disasters, like for the farmer, but also from work pressure, complex relationships, or worries about daily sustenance. Imagine a worker far from home, leaving early for work in the morning, returning to a cramped, rented room at night, carefully saving every penny each month to send home to his family. Sometimes the work is exhausting. Sometimes colleagues are not harmonious. Sometimes the manager is strict. But they still patiently move forward because they clearly understand that no one can live for them. No one can provide for their parents or children. In that quiet resilience, we see a small but persistent light, the light of human inner strength. The Buddha once said, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one should, do it for us. We ourselves must walk our own path." That teaching is like a guiding light, reminding us that all liberation begins from within. When we realize this, we will no longer look to others for salvation, no longer blame life as unfair, but will focus on nurturing our inner self, building mental strength to walk steadfastly. One of the most effective ways to nurture inner strength is mindfulness. When we breathe in awareness, know how to observe our minds in every moment, we will no longer be swept away by fear or blame. Amidst storms, a mindful person is like a boat with a rudder, always knowing where they are going and maintaining balance. Each day, just taking a few minutes to sit quietly, put down the phone, and listen to our breath, we will find our minds more stable. And from that stability, we can face any challenge. But inner strength is not just mindfulness. It is also faith, believing that no matter how difficult, tomorrow will still hold light. Believing that all suffering has limits, nothing lasts forever. Believing that within us there is always the ability to recover. Just as after a long, cold winter, trees, seemingly dead, sprout new buds in spring. Life is the same. No storm lasts forever. no pain extends endlessly. If we are patient enough to wait, the sunrise will surely return. In Buddhist teachings, I remember once visiting a storm-ravaged rural area where the entire field was devastated and roofs were blown off. But amidst that desolation, I saw an incredibly beautiful image. The villagers sat together, sharing instant noodle packets, bottles of water, encouraging each other to rebuild their homes. In their eyes, I saw faith. And that faith was the inner strength that helped them overcome loss, to rebuild from scratch. Material possessions may be swept away, but no storm can take away inner strength. When we understand this, we will see that challenges are no longer enemies, but companions. They come to temper us, to reveal strengths we normally don't perceive. Each time we overcome a challenge, our inner strength grows a little more. Our minds become a little more steadfast. Just like an ancient tree, thanks to enduring many storms, its roots delve deep into the earth. Its trunk becomes steadfast, providing shade for life. Therefore, when you are going through difficult days, please don't despair prematurely. Believe that within you lies an immense inner strength. Every tear shed will make your heart more resilient. Every time you fall, you learn to stand up. Every wound in your heart is a door opening to wisdom. If you are persistent enough, every storm will eventually pass, the sky will clear, and you will smile looking back, grateful for the hardships that helped you grow. Dear friend, everything in this world is impermanent, including suffering. Today's challenges will become tomorrow's memories. The important thing is not how many storms we have experienced, but what kind of person we have become after all of it. If in storms we maintain compassion, if in adversity we maintain patience, then challenges are the most precious gifts life bestows. Remember that no one can live this life for us. But it is precisely thanks to this that we have the opportunity to discover the boundless strength within ourselves, to walk on a path of peace and inner freedom. There are afternoons when we sit quietly, watching the sunset descend, and we suddenly feel our hearts soften. After a long day full of chores, the late afternoon sun stretches across the rooftops. The wind gently sways the tree branches, and the echoing calls of birds gathering their flock resonate. All create a truly peaceful scene. And in that moment, perhaps you too have asked yourself, where does true human happiness lie? A seemingly simple question, yet it keeps countless souls restless. Because all of us are constantly chasing happiness, but the further we go, the further it seems to get. Many people believe that happiness only comes with great wealth, dazzling fame, and high status that commands respect. Yet, once achieved, we realize that within our hearts, there are still empty spaces that cannot be filled. And sometimes, amidst all that splendor, we feel strangely alone. The Buddha once taught that the root of suffering is greed, anger, and delusion. Humans constantly chase desires, seeking externally, but forgetting that true peace can only be found when we return to our inner selves. Happiness is not far away, not in those sparkling things out there, but in a heart that knows contentment, that appreciates every present moment. One summer morning, I walked through a rural field. Dewdrops still clung to the leaves. Golden sunlight poured onto the lush green rice paddies. In the distance, a farmer was diligently plowing. On his tanned face, I saw a kind smile. I asked, and learned his family wasn't well off at all. But he said, "Every day I see the rice growing well, my wife and children healthy, and food on the table with vegetables and fish. That makes me happy. Happiness isn't some grand thing. As long as there's laughter in the house and no heavy worries in my heart, that's enough." His simple words made me suddenly realize that happiness sometimes lies in such small, simple things that we often overlook. Some people spend their whole lives chasing money, struggling to make a living, accumulating bit by bit with the belief that wealth alone brings happiness. But when old age came knocking, health deteriorated, and only then did they truly grasp that money cannot buy peaceful sleep, nor can it buy back lost time. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha once said, "The one who knows contentment is the richest person." For true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in a mind that knows how to appreciate what it already has. Try to think, isn't happiness when we sit together around a simple meal filled with love? Isn't it returning home after a hard day, hearing children chirp about school, hearing parents' gentle laughter, feeling the warmth of ordinary yet precious hugs? Happiness can also simply be waking up in the morning and still seeing the sunrise outside the window, still breathing a gentle breath, still having feet to walk and hands to work. These seemingly small things are precisely the miracles of life. There's a story I want to tell you. In a small riverside village, there was a worker who hauled sand for hire. His life was very hard, day after day, enduring rain and sun, the burden on his shoulders never light. But he never complained. He was always seen smiling. People asked, "Why are you still so cheerful when life is so difficult?" He replied, "In the evening, seeing my children sleep soundly, seeing my wife waiting with dinner, hearing the gentle gurgle of water by the eaves, my heart feels light. I don't have a lot of money, but I have my family. I have peace. That's enough." That answer is proof that happiness does not depend on external circumstances, but on how we perceive and appreciate life. In society today, many people mistakenly believe that happiness means external success. They compare themselves to others, feel jealousy if someone is better, feel sadness and shame if they are worse, and then lose their inherent joy. But the Buddha taught that there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path itself. That means happiness is not the ultimate destination, but precisely every step we are taking, every breath we are living. When we live mindfully, recognizing the wonder of the present, then any moment can be happiness. Do you remember the last time you sat quietly listening to the rainfall? The patter of rain, cool and refreshing, soothing the entire soul. Or the last time you peacefully gazed at the starry night sky, to see ourselves small amidst the vast universe, and to feel that simply existing in this life is already a stroke of luck. These simple moments, if we know how to cherish them, will become the truest happiness. Many people often ask, so where ultimately does true happiness lie? The answer is that happiness lies within a heart that knows love and gratitude. When we are grateful for parents who gave us life, grateful for life that gave us the opportunity to live, grateful for those who passed through our lives, even if only once, then naturally we will feel abundant happiness. And when we know how to give, how to share love, then happiness multiplies manifold. The Buddha once taught that a person may have all the wealth in the world, but if their heart is filled with greed, anger, and jealousy, that person is still poor. But the one who knows how to love, how to give, how to live mindfully in every moment, that person is already the richest. Therefore, happiness is not far away. It lies in how we live each day, in the simple things we often inadvertently overlook. And dear friend, happiness also lies in knowing how to let go. Let go of comparison. Let go of clinging. Let go of anger, so the soul can be light like a flower in the sky. When the mind is calm, we can see true joy. When the mind is troubled, even with abundant gold and silver, immense fame, we still suffer as usual. So, letting go is the key that opens the door to happiness. Try this once. When evening comes, instead of hastily scrolling on your phone, turn off all the lights, sit quietly in your small room, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Feel every heartbeat, every breath, to see that simply being able to breathe is already a wondrous gift. Let gratitude fill you. Grateful for the day that is past. Grateful for small joys. Grateful even for difficulties, for they teach us to grow. At that time, you will realize that happiness doesn't need to be sought far away. It is right here in this moment. The ancients had a saying, "Contentment brings perpetual joy." Those who know enough are always happy. Enough doesn't mean not striving, but not letting scarcity cause suffering. Knowing enough means accepting the present, striving, but not craving, living fully, but without attachment. That is the path that leads us to true happiness. And friend, happiness is not something we hold tightly for ourselves. Happiness is when we know how to share, how to make others smile. Sometimes a timely word of comfort, sincere listening, a hand holding another hand, these are enough to create happiness for both. Happiness is not a tangible possession, but a flowing river of love. The more it is shared, the fuller it becomes. Try to imagine one day you grow old, with gray hair and wrinkled skin, sitting on your porch, watching your children and grandchildren chirp and play, hearing their laughter echo. Your heart will feel so peaceful. At that time, you no longer need fame, money, or status, because true happiness is inner peace, family love, and cherished, beautiful memories. That is a treasure that nothing can trade for. Therefore, true happiness lies not in money, fame, or status. It lies in laughter in the family, in peace in the soul, in gratitude and appreciation for what we already have. When we understand this, we will no longer tirelessly chase external illusions, but will return to care for ourselves, love those around us, live fully in every moment. So if you are lost, sit down, take a deep breath, and look around. You will find happiness in a loved one's smile, in a friend's presence, in the sunrise, or a drop of rain. Happiness is simple, but only when we open our hearts do we see it existing everywhere. And when you realize that, you will know that you have returned to yourself, the safest haven of happiness. Have you ever sat alone on a quiet afternoon, watching the sunset slowly descend behind the village bamboo grove, and asked yourself if human life is so short? Have we truly lived it fully? Those moments often come unexpectedly after we've experienced an upheaval, when a loved one leaves, or when busy work leaves our hearts weary. The moment we watch the sun sink below the horizon, our hearts suddenly feel an invisible reminder. Everything passes. Nothing lasts forever. That is the nature of impermanence. The Buddha once taught that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent, like bubbles that rise and then vanish, like morning mist that quickly dissolves under the morning sun. Humans constantly chase happiness, power, fame, but few stop to feel that all those things are merely like drifting clouds, fleeting breezes. Yet when facing loss, we panic, feel pain, find it hard to accept. In reality, if we understand impermanence, we won't be mournful. Instead, we will appreciate every present moment, for every breath, every smile, every handshake are wondrous gifts bestowed by life. I remember once returning to my hometown and seeing a farmer harvesting rice in a brilliant golden field. He cut each stalk slowly, sweat beading on his tanned face, but his eyes shone with an indescribable joy. I asked him, "Why are you still so cheerful when the work is so hard?" He smiled and said, "Every rice season is the same. Sometimes there's a good harvest, sometimes a bad one. No one can predict the rain and wind, but being able to harvest rice and bring it home to the family, that's happiness." Hearing that, I suddenly reflected that happiness sometimes lies simply in accepting impermanence. We harvest in the season if the conditions are right. We have it. If the conditions are gone, we lose it. There's nothing to complain about. That farmer didn't study profound teachings, but through his own experience, he naturally understood impermanence, acceptance, and letting go. And that very acceptance brought him peace. There's a small story I once heard from a friend who worked as a laborer. He recounted that when he was young, he really wanted to be a manager, to be respected by others, so he worked day and night. But then one time, due to a work accident, he had to stay in the hospital for almost 3 months, nearly losing his hand. Lying in the hospital bed, he realized that everything he had chased for so long, position, money, could not be held on to when this fragile body faced adversity. Only the love of his wife and children, of friends and colleagues who visited, warmed his heart. He told me that that accident, though painful, was a great lesson that helped him awaken. He learned not to rush, not to compare, to cherish every simple meal with his family, to appreciate even rainy and windy days. He said that it was precisely by touching impermanence that he truly understood what happiness was. In life, we are often swept away by the endless cycle of work, of insatiable desires. We think that when we achieve this, we will be happy. When we have that, we will be fulfilled. But once we have it, our hearts want more, never enough. That is because we forget that life is inherently impermanent. Nothing is eternal. The Buddha taught that it is because of clinging to impermanent things that humans suffer. We suffer from losing loved ones, from not retaining wealth, from beauty fading with the years. But if we look at things with wisdom, we will see that impermanence is not an enemy, but a lesson. Thanks to impermanence, spring returns after winter, and dawn breaks after night's end. If everything stood still, how could we experience the freshness of each day? Try looking at a flower. This morning it bloomed. At noon it was fresh, but by afternoon its petals began to wilt, and at night it fell to the ground. We can be sad that the flower withered, but also happy that we saw it bloom brilliantly in that moment. Similarly, as a day passes, we can regret that youth is gone, but also smile because we lived a meaningful day. Fully. That choice lies within our own minds. An awakened person will choose to live every moment fully, so as not to regret when tomorrow is not like today. Sometimes a sudden rain shower wets our clothes and irritates us. But if we stop and look, we will see the rain cools the earth and sky, causing seeds quietly in the soil to sprout. Just like the upheavals in life, initially we may feel suffering, but then we realize that it is precisely thanks to that upheaval that we grow, that we learn to love and appreciate more. Impermanence, therefore, is not a tragedy, but a great teacher that helps us awaken. I know many people hearing these words may be experiencing loss. Perhaps you've just lost a loved one. Perhaps a relationship has broken down. Perhaps you are facing illness or economic hardship. I just want to whisper to you that that suffering, that loss, will also pass, like a rain shower clearing the sky. And in that process, you can learn a priceless lesson. Don't waste time on resentment. Don't miss the simple moments of family love. Don't wait until it's lost to feel regret. The Buddha once said in the Dhammapada that nothing in this world lasts forever. The wise understand this and will not grieve over loss. Understanding impermanence doesn't make us pessimistic. On the contrary, it makes us appreciate every present moment. We cannot keep our loved ones by our side forever, but we can love them wholeheartedly while we still can. We cannot keep our youth forever, but we can live a meaningful youth so that when we are old, we can smile without regret. We cannot cling to success or assets, but we can use them to do good, to create blessings for the future. If one day you find life too short, try sitting down, closing your eyes, and listening to your breath. Breathing in, you know you are alive. Breathing out, you know you still exist. That alone is a miracle. When you are grateful for every breath, you will see that happiness is not far away. It is right here. In every moment, you are still awake. And when you understand impermanence, you will stop fearing loss, because you know that impermanence itself makes this life precious, makes love sacred, makes each day that passes an invaluable gift. Therefore, the lesson of awakening from impermanence is to live wholeheartedly in every present moment. Don't waste your youth in jealousy. Don't let worries obscure the light of your soul. Forgive others. Be compassionate to life, for we do not know if we will meet again tomorrow. Cherish your parents while you can still care for them. Love your children while you can still protect them. Hold your partner's hand while you can still walk together. Because impermanence teaches us that everything will change. Nothing stands still. And when we know how to cherish, how to let go, how to live mindfully, then every moment in life becomes happiness. At that time, impermanence is no longer a fear, but a gentle reminder for us to awaken, to love, to live fully and peacefully. One windless afternoon, as the sun gradually set behind the mountain range, golden orange light stretched across the fields. I saw a farmer stop working. After a hard day, he sat down by the edge of the field, took a deep breath, and looked into the distance. Beads of sweat rolled down his sun-darkened face, but in his eyes there was no longer weariness, but peace, because he knew that today he had done his best, had sown, had cared for, and as for the result, let heaven and earth take care of it. That moment reminded me of something very simple, yet profoundly important. We cannot control everything, but we can learn to let go, learn to live every moment fully. In life, we have all been through many ups and downs. There are joyful days filled with laughter, and there are long nights drenched in tears. Sometimes we gain something precious, only to lose it another day. Sometimes we love someone passionately, only to have to accept letting them go. All these emotions, sadness and joy, gain and loss, love and hate, are like fleeting winds passing through our lives. They come and go, leaving behind echoes, but then they too vanish. What remains is whether we learned to stand firm in the wind or let the wind sweep us away. The Buddha once taught that all phenomena are impermanent. Everything changes ceaselessly. A flower that bloomed brilliantly this morning will wither tomorrow. A sunset that was vibrant today will be different tomorrow. Similarly, a joy or a sorrow, no matter how intense, is just a fleeting breeze. If we cling to it, we will suffer. If we know how to let go, we will be light. Letting go doesn't mean we reject life, but rather that we learn to accept, learn to let everything flow naturally, like a river. In Buddhist teachings, I remember once meeting an elderly worker in my hometown. He recounted that when he was young, he always resented life, resented being poor, resented his heavy work not being enough to live on. But then one day, witnessing a close friend die in an accident, he realized that life was too short to only know how to complain. From that day on, he began to live differently. It was still the same work, the same simple life, but he learned to cherish every meal with his wife and children, to cherish the laughter of his grandchildren, to cherish a good night's sleep. Every night he would say, "I no longer wish for wealth. I only wish for peace in my heart." Hearing that, I suddenly understood that letting go is not always a loss. Sometimes letting go is a discovery, finding peace in what already exists. Letting go to return to oneself is a journey back to our inner home. It's not running away from the world, but knowing how to face it with a steadfast soul. When we know how to love ourselves, know how to listen to our inner voice, then even if there are storms around us, we still have a refuge. No one can take that place away, for it belongs to us alone. The Buddha taught that within each person lies the seed of enlightenment, but that seed only blossoms when watered with awareness and compassion. We cannot run to seek peace externally, for the more we seek, the more we lose it. Peace only exists when we stop, take a breath, smile at ourselves, accept what is past, cherish what we have, and open our hearts to what is to come. Someone asked me, if we let go of everything, will life still have meaning? I smiled. Letting go doesn't mean we abandon everything, but that we no longer suffer for things we cannot hold on to. We still love, still work, still live fully, but without immersing ourselves in clinging. Like the farmer, after a day of sowing seeds, he doesn't worry or overthink. He trusts heaven and earth, trusts in karmic conditions. We are the same. We live, we love, we do what is right. And for the rest, let life operate on its own. If one day you feel tired, please stop for a moment. Find a quiet place, perhaps on the porch, under a tree, or in your own small room. Sit down, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Tell yourself that you are enough. You don't need to carry any more burdens. In that moment, you will feel a cool stream flow from within, washing away all worries, and you will realize that what you have been searching for all this time has always been within you. Human life is inherently short. If we keep carrying too many burdens, we will miss countless precious moments. Let go of resentments, for anger only burns ourselves. Let go of comparisons, for comparisons only make us uneasy. Let go of regrets, for the past is already gone. When we let go, we can open our hearts to receive simple joys. A fresh morning, a loving smile, a warm meal. In the view of Buddhist teachings, everything is karma. People come, people go. Events happen or dissolve, all arise from karmic connections. So why should we cling or resist? When we know how to accept karmic connections, we will see life as a river. We are swimmers in that river, not trying to cling to any rock, but letting ourselves float with the current, both calm and free. Dear friend, we have been on a long journey together, from days filled with worries to learning how to breathe slowly, how to walk alone, and today, learning how to let go, to return to oneself. All these things are not for us to abandon life, but for us to live more fully amidst life. So that when someone asks if you are happy, we can smile and answer yes, because I have learned how to live with myself. And now, as this concluding message rings out, I want to send you a simple yet profound message. All sorrows and joys, gains and losses, loves and hates are merely fleeting winds. Live a truly peaceful day. Smile and love, for that is the path that leads us back to ourselves. You deserve peace. You deserve to love yourself. And when you know how to love yourself, you will also know how to love others more. That is the most beautiful cycle of karma. I wish you a peaceful life, a soul as light as a cloud, and a heart wide enough to hold love. Close off the noise, gently release all worries, and walk freely on your own path, letting go to return to yourself. That is the most precious gift you can bestow upon this life.